everyone, this is Ronnie Neoen, and today we're taking a look at the MagicBook Pro from Honor. Yes, we're doing that again. Here's what happened. A few months ago at IFA, Honor sent me this laptop, the MagicBook Pro with the Ryzen 5 4600H. I thought that was pretty interesting at the time because the only MagicBook that I had reviewed was the MagicBook 14. The U series Ryzen 5, 3500U in that case. So this was the first one they made, or the first one that they sent me, with a 4000 series Ryzen processor, but also the first one with an H series processor. So those have a 45 watt TDP instead of the 15 watt. So they're a little more powerful, but they also use more power. And I was interested in that at the time, but now this is really intriguing because this one that they sent me today, this also has a U series processor, even though it's also a MagicBook Pro. They're both MagicBook Pros and they're pretty much variants of the same laptop. They're exactly the same aside from the processor. But this one has an Intel Core i5-10210U, which is a 15 watt processor as well. But this time it comes with dedicated graphics. This one only had the Radeon graphics built into the CPU. This one has a dedicated graphics card, which is the GeForce MX350 from Nvidia. And I think that's really interesting that these two variants of the product are so distinct in the processors that they have inside. H series 45 watt processor, U series 15 watt processor with a dedicated graphics card. I think that's really interesting. In terms of the total power consumption, I think this should be lower a little bit because it is a 45 watt package here, and this is a 15 watt CPU and a 25 watt GPU. That adds up to around 40 watts, but also you might not always be using that GPU to its full power during just normal use. So I expect this to last a little longer in terms of the battery, and so does Honor because they rate this one for 11 hours of battery life and this one for 11 and a half. It's not a big difference, but it is a little bit more, and maybe in real life usage the difference is even bigger. I'll have to check that out. But for now, let's open this up. So we have the laptop right away. Pull it out. And here we have a charger, which is also the same as we've been seeing in previous MagicBooks. So this one is a UK adapter, but it is 65 watts fast charger. It is a USB Type-C brick, and it comes with a Type-C to Type-C cable, which is kind of important, but we'll get into that in a bit. So 65 watt charging, the same for pretty much every Honor MagicBook, really, even the 14-inch ones. So let's set that off to the side and open up the laptop itself. So just looking at the laptops, you can tell right away that they look different at least. So this AMD one came in a single color, which Honor called space gray. So it's this dark tone, kind of similar to what Apple calls space gray. So if you're familiar with Apple, I kind of know what to expect there. And this Honor calls Mystic Silver. And I mean, they're pretty similar in terms of the design. They're pretty much the same laptop, like I said. And I do like that this one is different, but it's not necessarily that it's better. It's just that I think I'm tired of this one because I've had it for a few months. Neither of them is a very compelling design. That's something that's, I think, important to say, that I like the way this one looks, but it's not because it's necessarily prettier. It's more so that I'm tired of that one. Neither of them is extremely good looking. I like it when laptops have something a little more distinctive, like the MagicBook 14 and 15. Those have blue chamfered edges all around, and the Honor logo is also blue with this sort of sheen to it. I like that. This is kind of boring. It's fine, but neither of them is really wowing me. But let's just open up the laptop really quick. Well, okay. And that's what it looks like on the inside. We'll take a closer look when I switch the camera around, and I won't be on the camera anymore. So now we have the MagicBook Pro here, and we're just gonna start by taking a look at the ports. So on this side, we have a USB Type A. So all the USB ports here are 3.2 Gen 1. So one here, HDMI 2.0, and a USB Type C port for charging. And it's not Thunderbolt. I don't know exactly why, but the thing is, the AMD version obviously couldn't have Thunderbolt because Thunderbolt is Intel technology. So for equality's sake, no one gets Thunderbolt. And on this side, we have two more USB Type A's, again 3.2 Gen 1, and a headphone jack 3.5mm port right there. So I think that's a decent amount of connectivity. You got plenty of USB, you got HDMI, and you have obviously the Type C port for charging. But the thing about that Type C port though is that because the computer comes with a Type C to Type C cable, the same cable that's used for charging the computer, you can also plug it in to the laptop and then not a phone or something and charge that with the same cable, which I think is pretty interesting. And it even works, I mean, that's not new, but it even works when the computer is shut down, which I think is pretty cool. So now we open this up and we'll take a look at the inside here. And again, this is very, very similar to the AMD version that we already reviewed. So standard keyboard, no numeric pad. You do have top firing speakers, but I have to be honest, they sound fine, but I think they could be better. I do like that they're top firing, but if these are the same as the AMD version, they definitely could be louder. I wish they were louder, but you know, they're okay. They're all right. Here we have the power button, which doubles as a fingerprint sensor. And while I generally prefer facial recognition for Windows Hello, this is one of those fingerprint sensors that caches your fingerprint as soon as you press the button. So you power it on, and it's gonna log you in. It saves the fingerprint when you press the button, and then when it gets to the login screen in Windows 10, it logs you in automatically, assuming it does recognize that your fingerprint. And another thing that's noteworthy here is that the camera here is on the keyboard. That they do that every time. I still hate it, and I'll show you why. But if you've ever tried to use one of these cameras, you already know why. But I'll turn the computer on and show you. The touchpad is pretty nice. It's a large size. It could be bigger considering the size of the chassis here, but this is fine and it's very comfortable. And what I really like about these touchpads is that they're precision touchpads. So all those gestures that come with precision touchpads are just so great. I really like what you can do with those. So I'm just gonna go ahead and turn this on. So now we're logged in, and here we have my desktop, of course. So like I said at the start, this is exactly the same laptop as the one I reviewed 6 months ago. So the display, sound, keyboard is probably all gonna feel the same. One difference that I think is worth pointing out though is the trackpad. And I didn't notice this immediately myself. I saw someone online point it out. On the AMD version, there was an issue with the trackpad here where if you pressed it a little bit but without clicking, it would rock in place and you can kind of feel it like hit a certain point when you moved it. There's like this sort of clicking noise without the touchpad actually clicking. That doesn't seem to be as much of a problem here, or at all. It seems to work just fine. So a little tighter quality control there. That is definitely appreciated. But aside from that, it should be all the same. The display looks pretty darn nice. It has a maximum brightness of 300 nits, which isn't a lot, but it's decent. I mean, I use mine mostly indoors, and right now it's pretty sunny. There's a lot of light coming in from the outside from my window, and it still looks pretty darn fine. I actually don't know what brightness level it's at, but we can take a look at that. So it's max brightness right now, so it's not amazing, but it's completely visible. The colors look pretty nice. It does cover 100% of the sRGB color gamut, so that is good. It's not Adobe RGB, which some people might prefer, but that is pretty nice, and it looks good. And I mean, look at my Mario wallpaper, it's wonderful. So let's talk about why I hate that camera, since I mentioned that already. Here's what happens when I'm in a Teams meeting and I want to use the camera because I'm in a meeting, and maybe someone mentions something that I want to look up, but I need to do some research or take some notes. Here's what happens when you're on a call with a camera like this. If you're typing, this is what you're gonna look like to people. It's not great. It's not a huge deal. Like normally, it's not like gonna be a big problem to using like this, but it's inconvenient. It's not the best angle in the first place. So I really don't love that camera placement, and I don't know why Honor won't change it, but I can only hope they do it soon. Anyways, like I said, the screen looks fine. That camera thing is problematic, but it's also tolerable. Things work alright. The keyboard is nice. The keyboard feels fine enough. I wish, the arrows are separated here, but it's all the same as before. And it's just running Windows, so there's not a lot I can say about the software. Honor does include their PC Manager app. So if you open this is in Portuguese for one thing, but also this is where you can update your drivers. It's actually something for my fingerprint sensor apparently. There's battery settings. Here you can choose between the performance mode or the balanced mode, which you can also enable with the function key and P, which I did not know until recently, until I read the reviewer's guide. Well, they say you can enable it with the function key and P, but it doesn't seem to be working right now. So if I have less than 20% battery, I can't enable it. That's why it wasn't working. But it does. The feature is there, and here is probably the most interesting part about this phone, which is the multi-screen collaboration. So you might have noticed that there's a little sticker down here in addition to the usual Intel one. You have this sticker that says Honor Magic Link, and that's what Honor calls this is what Honor is referring to when they say they have multi-screen collaboration. So if you have an Honor phone like this one, this is the 30 Pro Plus from last year, and if you have it, you can just tap it on the sticker there, and it's gonna bring up a connection request here, and I can allow it. And in this case, because I was only in the home screen, what's gonna happen is that it's gonna show me my phone screen on the computer right away. It's just cool. So if you do have an Honor phone, which you might not have because it is a limited operating system right now, they can't have normal Android, they don't have Google services. But if you do, it is pretty cool to be able to do all these things from your computer and control your phone from here and do everything you want to do. And if you open this little thing here on the side, there's also things like your clipboard. So if you copy things on your phone, if you copy text, it'll show up automatically here on the PC Manager app on the laptop. So I think those are pretty cool features that enable this cool ecosystem if you have Honor products. Right now it's not ideal because, like I said, you don't have Google services, so having an Honor phone kind of has a few drawbacks, but it's still cool. And now that Honor is a separate company from Huawei, which was the reason they had all those restrictions in place, maybe Honor will be able to get those Google services back up and enable these features all the same. So that's what I want to see. But really, that's about it. Like I said, this is very, very similar to the other MagicBook Pro. There's not a ton here that's unique. I think that's all that they have is that the PC Manager thing. Everything else is pretty standard. There's the Intel and Nvidia graphics stuff, Realtek audio. So aside from those built-in drivers and system apps, there's really not a whole lot here that's unique It's a pretty clean build. This does have a 512GB SSD. That's something that's worth mentioning. And I don't know if they do it in this one, but in the other laptops they make, they split it into 2 partitions, which is just annoying. But you can merge the partitions if you want to. And there's also 16GB of, I believe, LPDDR4 RAM. And the thing about it is that it's dual channel memory, so there's a bit more bandwidth. Honor says there's 50% more bandwidth because it's dual channel instead of being single channel, and that's a big benefit. So if you're using apps that can use that extra bandwidth, that's pretty cool. Of course, I really want to test the performance in this compared to something like specifically the AMD version of this laptop, because I really want to see how this U-series processor with a dedicated graphics card does against the H-series processor without the dedicated graphics card. So we'll have to take a look at that. So let's, just to wrap this up, guys, let's talk about the price for a second, because they are kind of different prices. These 2 variants that we have here, the AMD one with a 45-watt processor and this one with the Intel 15-watt processor and the dedicated graphics card. They are variants of the same laptop, but they are technically slightly different price, but it's really weird. If you have ever checked Honor's website, the pricing schemes are pretty weird. So if you go to the UK website right now, they have this section where they list the base prices for both of them, and the Intel one is £100 more. So this is £949. And this is £849. But then you have to configure it with like offers, there's a watch or something like that. And when you configure the phone package, this one actually turns out to be still $849. And this one then is just $749 because it doesn't include all the same add-ons and there's a bigger discount for some reason. So it's really weird that this one is technically more expensive, but then it's cheaper. Then if you go on the friend's website, they're just the same price. But again, this one is marked as having a bigger discount. So while this one is technically more expensive, Honor almost always seems to be running discounts on their website. So you might be able to find it for the same price. And it's really up to where you live. So I check your local Honor website and try to buy it from there and see what the difference in price is. Because they are very similar. From what I can tell, but it's always changing. They always have different discounts going on. So take a look at that. But with that being said, that's pretty much everything I can say about the laptop right now. Of course, I'll be reviewing it for at least a week or 2, and I'll let you know what I think of it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.